So again, I want to stress, Christie's kind of magical. Like everything she touches just explodes. Rumor has it that if you dance with her, salsa, under the stars, like instantly all your money blocks get shaken off. Like, guys, try that.
Good thing I don't know salsa, so somebody has to teach me.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we have about 25 minutes because Christie's work is really interesting. It's very unusual. And she has so many case studies, so many success stories. We wanted to use this opportunity to have me and you guys ask Christie really insightful questions that might help you understand the nature of abundance blocks and subconscious beliefs better so that you can apply this in your life in a more effective way. Okay, so my first question for you, Christie, is, are you magical?
Well, actually, have you guys ever looked up the dictionary definition of weird? Okay, I had this experience. I asked my mom one time, I was young. I was always a weirdo, okay? How many are fellow weirdos? I said, Mom, am I weird? And she goes, Christie, you really are weird. and then later in my life, I looked up the definition of weird, and one of the definitions of weird is supernatural. So I think we are all weirdos, okay?
So our first question is, how could we do this on our own as a practice? What you just took us through and what you teach people, is there a model, a practice that we can apply in our lives in the comfort of our own homes to help us rapidly clear blocks that we might be discovering about ourselves?
Yeah, so, I mean, literally, it's all about asking a question, okay? Intuition, when I'm being intuitive, people don't get this. What I'm doing in my mind is I'm asking rapid fire these questions in my head out of curiosity. Like, why are they wired like that? Like, why is he wired like that? Why does he have this dense energy over his right shoulder that is actually really there? Okay, but I'm doing it from a curiosity, okay? And then if I go into it, I hear, because I'm always looking for blocks, right? Like 5 years old, father's energy, didn't feel supported, okay? So I'm asking questions in my head of what's happening around somebody's world. And you can do the same thing. So you connect to the light, okay? You bring in a lot of light, you bring in abundance, you expand your energy field. The reason you expand your energy field is because if you're contracted, you're not connected, okay? Most people walk around kind of contracted and fearful. And you connect to the light and you start asking questions. You know, what is the earliest age I felt not supported? Like maybe your theme that day is you're not feeling supported in your life, right? So you're like, oh, this is a kind of interesting thing. What's the earliest age I felt not supported? Okay, did I pick it up from my mom, from my dad? Because usually we're duplicating 0 to 7, right? And once you discover it, then you can ask more questions. Well, what other ages did I not feel supported? You know, and then once you find that, you can feel where it feels dense around you or tense. Okay? And I promise you, a lot of your ailments, how many of you guys have any weird body issues that happen all the time? Okay? Seriously? You have some thought forms that are in that part of your body that really need to clear that are probably tied to a pattern. Okay? So it's kind of fascinating how that works. But yeah, so every day then you connect to the light, you ask questions, bring in a lot of light. I'm going to clear and transmute it across all time, dimension, space, reality. And then fill in with the opposite of, hey, what would it take for me to feel supported?
So can we try an experiment?
Yeah,
Can we
absolutely.
get a volunteer on stage? Give him a round of applause. Sit down. I picked Acer for a reason. Acer is from the Army, and we were talking last night about how many people who are serving around the world suffer from really great, immense PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So Acer would be a really interesting experiment. Are you comfortable with this? Okay. So maybe could we just try a quick 5-minute round with Acer, pretending that this is Acer in his home? What would he do to get rid of bad energy blocks?
Okay. So what's a silly story that I call it the stupid story, okay? We're all living out some stupid story, right? So what kind of stupid story has come up for you in the last couple of days that you're aware of? Okay. I'll give you this. Okay. Yeah. What's something you want to get rid of in your life? What's a block? Money, love?
Money's a block. Money's a block.
Okay. What's the normal pattern? Is it you spend too much, you don't make enough, credit card debt? Like where's the...
It's that I have a goal, I meet the goal, and then it still seems not enough.
So you feel inside not enoughness. Is that what you're saying? Or you mean it's literally not enough?
That resonated.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to just close your eyes for a minute so you can just kind of tune in without, okay. So just think of connecting to the light, bringing in light from above and below, and just kind of expand your energy back out. Okay. So what's the first age that you felt not enoughness? Okay.
6.
Okay. Was that from mom's energy? Dad's energy? Your energy?
Dad/church.
Okay. Okay. So what is the main emotion you're feeling tied to not enoughness?
The energy that I feel towards that is
Like emotion.
I feel sad. I feel afraid that I'll never get to that. I feel wrong.
Okay. So let's bring in, where do you feel that in, on, and around your body?
Here.
Okay. So take your energy into that spot. So that just means there's lots of thought forms kind of hooked in there, stories. That's where you stored it. If we don't delete things, we store it usually in our body. So bring in a lot of light from above and below. And just kind of think I'm going to clear and transmute it across all time, dimensions, space, and reality. I'm going to clear and transmute it across all time, dimensions, space, and reality. Now, I'm not sure if he's aware of this, so I'm going to just bring it up. So part of that energy also ties back in behind your heart. And could you notice that? Yeah. So the pattern is usually it'll start in one place and then it worms its way other places, okay? So you kind of follow it around. So bring in some more light behind your heart. Clear and transmute that across all time, dimension, space, and reality. Clear and transmute it. And then just keep bringing in light until you feel like it's not really there. Okay. All right, so just go ahead and open your eyes. Now I want you to think of that incident again. Okay, so I want you to think of not enoughness, 6 years old. Does it feel different when you go to think about it right now?
It feels like a movie now.
Yeah. You see, so basically when it's totally out of your system, it's just neutral and it's somewhere else. Okay, so now think of the pattern that you were talking about earlier of not feeling enoughness. See, I'm watching his energy. It's hard for you to kind of grab that energy, right? It seems harder, or it's not as, yeah. You like he can't find his problem anymore. You're like, what's my problem? I don't have it.
Thank you, Asa.
Yeah.
Thanks. So please give Asa a big round of applause.
Yeah.
So I wanted to demonstrate that because I've worked with Christie, and I have a similar thing when I'm working with her. She will I'll think about the block that I'm facing, and as she's guiding me, I will instantly regress to a moment in my past. And I remember one particular call we did, I regressed to a moment in my past where I was sitting in the back seat of a car. My parents were in front, and they were talking about how they were running out of money. And it was my birthday, and they were taking me to a mall so I could buy a present. And I remember I didn't want to butt into their discussion, so I pretended I was asleep. I was 9 years old, and I felt so guilty hearing my mom, who was a school teacher, and my dad, who was a manager at a department store, talk about money. And they were talking about it in a very loving way. They knew they were driving me to buy a birthday gift. But I remember when I got out of that car to buy that gift, I picked the cheapest thing I could get, a book. And my mom said, Vishen, it's your birthday. You can get something bigger. And I said, no, I'll just take this book. And so that memory came to me when I was doing this with Christie Marie Sheldon. And I realized that that came from a belief that I have. And the belief went something like this. If you ask for too much, someone else you love will suffer. So you see how this works? So Christie, if we could break this process that you did with me, that you did with Asa, down into a series of steps, what would that look like? What would step 1 be for someone here applying this in their home?
Okay, so step 1 is always connect to the light. I literally can't emphasize that enough. I have this, I always say ABC, always be connected, because you can't feel fear in the same way if you're actually connected to an expanded state, okay? So step 1, always be connected.
And so the light could be any higher power or God or any higher force we believe in.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
exactly.
how might we connect to the light? Is it a visualization? Is it a prayer? What would you do?
So it's you imagine light coming in your body from above, and you imagine light coming in from below, and you expand it out like a big sunshine. Now, the reason we want all flows opening, okay? You're an infinite being, and you just don't flow one way, right? Like you flow from every direction. So you're bringing in light from everywhere, and then you're expanding it out, so your energy is giving and receiving simultaneously. Okay, so that's step 1. And step 2, then, ask a question. And the question might be, I'm feeling this feeling. What's the first age that I ever felt that? What is the emotion attached to it? Now, sometimes you won't get an answer, and that's fine. We're just trying to kind of label it enough so that we can find it, okay? It's really just for our ability, we just want to scope it out. So ask a question. What's the first age I felt this? Who did I duplicate it from? What's the emotion I'm feeling? Where is it in, on, or around my body? And then once you kind of locate it, you bring in the light. So you just imagine light coming in into that part of your body. And you're just saying, I clear and transmute it, which basically is, you're basically just setting the intention. Hey, this thing has to leave now. Okay? So if you have a strong enough intention, hey, this thing has to leave now, that's fine.
So I'm guessing step 2 is you identify the problem that you want to solve.
Okay, yeah.
Right? So it could be lack of love. It could be you're consistently fighting with someone. It could be lack of money. It could be a health illness or a pain.
Right.
And then step 3, you ask a series of questions to locate that energy pattern in your body.
Yeah.
What are those questions again?
So what age did I first feel this feeling?
What age did I first feel this feeling?
Okay. Who did I duplicate it from?
Who did I duplicate it from?
What is the emotion attached to it? Because it could be multiple emotions. And where is this located in, on, or around my body?
I see. You guys got the questions, right? And I think when Asa was doing this, he identified that it was his father and church, and there was a particular section of his body.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's step 3. Now tell us about step 4. What do we do then?
So step 4 is basically this light that we're connected to, which is really your infinite self, okay? Your infinite self can decide something and make it be different, okay? So if you bring in this higher energy, this higher vibration, which is like love and compassion and healing and whatever word you want to call that, okay? God, right? When you bring that energy in, it instantly kind of starts breaking up that denseness of that old story. So in that denseness is really, in that moment, when Asa was doing it, was all of his thoughts, his feelings, his decisions, his ideas, what he decided about this event, right? Like, hey, he decided, hey, this isn't so good, right? I feel sad about it. So in that denseness is all those stories. So you're bringing in light and you're basically trying to vaporize the whole entire story so that you can't even think about it anymore, basically.
So you bring in light, and I guess that's form of a prayer or an affirmation you're doing, or an imagination, creative visualization, and you're seeing it disintegrate and defragment that stuff, icky stuff that you're trying to get rid of.
Yeah.
Now I notice you say a specific line.
Yeah.
Sort of like a mantra. Can you say that line for us?
Yeah, so I say I clear and transmute it. So transmutation basically means like instantly vaporizes it and changes it, okay? Across all time, because this was stuck during certain times, right? This pattern was stuck in time. So we're clearing it through time. Dimensions, Like, I believe that we're an infinite being and that we have multiple dimensions. You know, we have our body, but we have our emotional level, we have our mental level, like we have dimensions within us, okay? So I'm clearing it through the dimensions. Space, we take up space, right? Like maybe when Asa's thinking about that event back in time, he's actually taking his energy back when it happened, and he can picture his dad, and, you know, there's this energy kind of locked back in space and time, okay? So time, dimension, space, and reality, and he made it real, right? Whenever we decide something long enough, it becomes part of our reality, right? So we're basically blowing it up throughout all those time, dimension, space, and reality. It's just my way of basically saying, you know what, enough. It's got to go in all forms.
I clear and transmute it across all time, dimension, space, and reality. So step 1, connect to the light. Step 2, identify what is that feeling or that problem that you want to eliminate. Step 3, locate it in your body. Try to understand if it's coming from your dad, your mom, culture, or religion, or whatever other source it's coming from. Step 4, imagine it disintegrating. Repeat the mantra, I clear and transmute it across all time, dimension, space, and reality. Yes. Is there step 5?
Go live love. But I'm making a joke, but that is the truth. But the step 5 is I like to fill in with something positive. So let's just say the belief was I don't feel supported. So then I do a step 5. I do what would it take? Now, I do what would it take for me to feel completely and totally supported? Like if that was my belief. Why do I do what would it take? Because I notice that sometimes when people do that, this is my personal thing of watching so many people's energy, okay? When people sometimes do the I am statements, like I am powerful, I am this, I am whatever, they don't always fully believe it, right? So I like to say, what would it take? So what would it take for an extra $1 million idea to show up in my world? When I'm saying what would it take, it's like I'm expanding my energy out into the universe to allow unlimited possibilities to show back up. So if I say, what would it take for me to feel supported? I'm saying, universe, please bring me 20,000 different ways that I can feel supported today. Okay, so there's no limit on the what would it take. You're just asking, you're throwing it out there from this really cool kind of positive space, and you're letting it just sort of, you know, come back into your world. So that's why I do it like that.
So step 5, let's use Asa as an example. After he defragments that ickiness, he would say, what would it take for me to? Right,
isn't it so funny? I can't even remember what your story was. Isn't that hilarious? No, it really does. Like, after I do something, it's just gone out of my mind. So whatever, I don't know what the opposite of, not enoughness. Okay, so what would it take for me to always feel like I'm enough? What would it take for the universe to completely support me in my enoughness? What would it, you know? And maybe something shows up, or somebody has a conversation with you later that just kind of like helps you see something about yourself that maybe you didn't see, and you go, wow, I really am enough. You know? We don't know how it's going to play out. But we're throwing it out there so it plays out however, you know, the universe wants to help us.
Now, Christie, I noticed you do something else. You ask Asa, sometimes I've seen you ask me this, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate the problem?
Yeah. So again, when we're searching for the problem, I just like to have you guys label it. So I could have said to Asa, I could have said, on a scale of 1 to 10, when he mentioned I feel sad, I could have said, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being completely and totally sad, how sad are you? And he might have said, I don't know, 6. Okay, then I could have said at the end of it, okay, scale of 1 to 10, how sad are you now? And when he was trying to search for it and it felt like a movie, you know, hopefully the answer is 0 or 1 or something like that. He's shaking his head yes, but yeah.
So I found it to be a very useful tool as well. Step 3, when you're locating the problem, you ask yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad, how tough, how deep, how dense does this feel? And after you're done on step 5, you ask yourself the same question. Usually you'll see it goes down on the scale. But that's positive reinforcement, seeing it go from an 8 or a 9 to a 4 or a 5. Next day, I guess you do it again and you try to get it from a 4 or 5 lower.
Yeah, I just do it right after that. Like if honestly, if I'm working on a problem, I just do it till I complete it, right? So if he would have came back and said I'm still at a 4 or 5, I would have had him do it again, but I would have asked the same questions, because I promise you the pattern would have been probably in some other part of his body or linked to something else. Because imagine it's like a spider web, like all the webs kind of interconnect, and we're just trying to like, you know, pull them off from the various places that we have them within our reality.
Perfect. So, yeah. Thank you, Christie.